Hey guys, this is me and my friend Cam's review of Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, I just want to apologize in advance. We were recording out in my family's camper and my dad turned on the air conditioning for us, but I could not figure out how to turn it off, and you hear the air conditioner going throughout the entire video. Once again, I apologize, and I hope it's not too distracting for you. I'm doing a movie review, and I'm joined by my friend Cam.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
Oh, you're very welcome. Why don't you, in case nobody recognizes you, remind them of what videos you were in, if you even remember.
Yeah, absolutely. To begin, my name is Cam Hunter, and I've been friends with him for quite a while. I've been in a few videos. We met with Mark over in the Friday Sagas. Yeah. And I've been in a few of yours. I know the Leprechaun skit, the Jesus bit, where what did you find Jesus and what does rabbits have to do with Easter, the Friday the 13th parody-ish video, I think, as well.
Yeah, where you and Moses get killed by Jason.
Yep, well, I think there was another one where, I can't think of it. I pushed you into the river?
Yes. I still have the scar from that, too.
You never let me live that one down.
You were also, years ago, me and him reviewed Blair Witch, the third Blair Witch movie, yes. With, it was you, me, Matt, and Guillermo.
True.
I miss Guillermo.
He was a good guy.
He was
a nice guy.
Too bad he got eaten. Now, introductions are out of the way. The movie we want to review is 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was co-written and directed by Michael Dougherty. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not 100% sure.
I would say so.
Yeah, before this, he directed Trick or Treat and Krampus. He also co-wrote movies like Superman Returns and several of the X-Men movies. And this is also a direct sequel to the 2014 Godzilla reboot, which was directed by Gareth Edwards. And this is the third film of Legendary's MonsterVerse. The second film in this series was Kong Skull Island, which of course was a reboot of King Kong. Have you seen the other two movies in this series?
I saw the first one, the Godzilla, a couple years ago. I unfortunately missed the Kong Skull Island. I didn't see that one. I am due to watch it and catch up on it. But as of this recording, no, I have not seen Skull Island. But I did see the first Godzilla.
Alright. And this is also the 35th film in the Godzilla franchise overall, and that's including the 1998 one, and then, like, the 3 anime ones that came out in Japan recently.
Okay, yep.
Now, the movie's taken its title from the American version of the original Godzilla. When the original Godzilla came over to America back in 1956, they re-edited the film as a movie called Godzilla King of the Monsters. Once again, that's what this is taking its title from. I also sort of found this to be almost like a loose remake of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which was the first film to introduce Ghidorah, and sort of a loose remake of Destroy All Monsters in the sense that you had multiple monsters showing up all over the world.
I don't know if I would say remake per se, but I think this film more or less took a lot of influence from those two films because you had to incorporate so many different characters from those. Ghidorah, the Rodan, and the Mothra. You had to incorporate them. It was just a matter of how. So, yes, in terms of taking from Ghidorah's debut movie, because Ghidorah in this one was the main bad kaiju, and then, yes, in terms of Destroy All Monsters, where everyone was together and it was just ending up being a giant brawl, but you can also say that they took a little bit of Mothra on how she was introduced, a little bit of Rodan on how he was introduced. I think it was like almost the greatest hits of some of the bigger Godzilla films, or the more prominent moments in the Godzilla franchise, and put in a 2019 updated format.
Yeah. Now, what other Godzilla films have you seen before we really get into this one?
Honestly, not too many. I know you're a diehard, so you've seen them all 20 times in a row. I have not. The first one, the original, of course, you can not see that. The movie where they debuted Mothra, the movie where they debuted Ghidorah, I did see the 98 one, the 2015 one a couple of years ago.
2014, you mean?
2014, my apologies. And this most recent one.
Alright.
So, like I said, I'm not huge in terms of I've seen the whole catalog, but I am a fan of Godzilla nonetheless. I've seen the highlights, I've seen the moments, I've seen the clips and bits and pieces of the overall history and saga of Godzilla.
Alright, well, at least you've seen 54, because I think that's the most important one, obviously.
I would say so,
Yeah.
especially to some of the callbacks that this film really does too for it.
I find the whole evolution of the Godzilla franchise to be pretty fascinating. Like, the original one's a pretty dead serious movie, and is actually more of a drama film, really, that just happens to have a giant monster, but by the time they got to the sequels, they became more like B-movies, and then they got sillier and sillier over time, and got cheesier and cheesier, and eventually Godzilla went from being, like, a villain to an anti-hero to an outright superhero by, like, the Godzilla films of the 70s.
Yeah.
And then the series got dark again in the 80s, but then got goofy again. So the series almost fluctuates between being really dark and really goofy. I found this one to be almost like the perfect mix between the darker, more serious Godzilla that you saw in, like, the original film, and sort of the goofy one as well, because there is some goofy stuff in this movie, I would say.
Correct, absolutely. I would say, honestly, when it came to the film, it addressed a more or less serious topic in today's world, but it broke with the occasional comedic relief. I think for this film, it was done just to the point where it wasn't too stupid or too dark or too... Pretty much all I'm going to be saying is pretty much what you're backing up and what you just said. So I'm more or less backing up what you said. In terms of this area of discussion, I don't have pretty much more to add because I genuinely agree with what you just said. Where
the original Godzilla was making a commentary on, like, nuclear testing and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And the aftermaths of them, yeah.
Yeah, this is very much making a commentary on climate change.
Oh, no, absolutely. They're saying that, bringing out the kaijus will reset the planet Earth based on everything that the humans and just climate change is ultimately doing to the planet. So you cannot not say that there's a huge emphasis on it because there blatantly is. That's the gist of the story and why ultimately all the kaijus end up coming out the way they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this very much felt like, to me this really felt like a Toho film just with a big budget, basically with a big Hollywood budget, like...
Absolutely. I even felt that back with the first one a couple of years ago, where that basically would have been the Godzilla if Toho had that type of budget and production back in '54.
Yeah.
So I just feel that this is just taking that, expanding upon it, to where now it's just a bigger, full-fledged type of world.
Yeah. Where I think 2014 failed, though, like, I felt 2014... was trying to be like Godzilla 54 in the sense that it was focusing on the human characters and all that, but where 2014 failed is they killed off the only character that was given that movie any sort of pathos, like, 30 minutes in, and the human characters after that were just kind of flat, and, you know, here, like, the human drama isn't, like, deep by any means, but it was enough to satisfy me, I would say.
It did its job well in terms of it was there to at least drive everything forward. At the end of the day, whether you agree or disagree, at least American audience-wise, nobody cares about the humans in the Godzilla film. They want Godzilla, they want destruction, they want fighting, they want action. Yeah. They want Godzilla, not the humans. So I think in this film, they realized that in terms of people want the kaijus. They want Godzilla. So they toned back the humans, but kept it just enough to where the story was able to continue, and they were the bridge between each and every Godzilla moment. Mm-hmm. So it was, for me, a good mix and blend of Godzilla action, human drama. The human drama still, I think, in my opinion, could have been just a little bit better, a little bit more. There were a couple beats throughout that I felt kind of were flat or could have been executed just a little bit more, but as a whole, significantly a step up from the first film.
Yeah. Now, the plot of King of the Monsters is it's set 5 years after the events of Godzilla 2014, and it follows members and former members of a government organization called Monarch who have known of the existence of giant monsters, or titans as they're called in this film, for years. In the beginning of the film, you follow a scientist and member of Monarch named Emma Russell, who has created a device that can control the giant monsters, and in the beginning of the film, her and her daughter Madison are kidnapped by a group of eco-terrorists who want to use the monsters as a way to control the human population of Earth, because they feel that if humanity is allowed to continue on the course that it's been going on, it will ultimately wipe itself out. So in the movie, Emma's ex-husband Mark and other members of Monarch are now trying to save Emma and Madison. But using the device, the terrorists wake up an ancient three-headed dragon called King Ghidorah and a giant pterodactyl called Rodan, and something that the terrorists didn't plan on is that King Ghidorah is now waking up and controlling monsters all over the world. So now Earth's only hope is Godzilla and a giant moth called Mothra. Now, in the movie, Vera Farmiga plays the character of Emma Russell. Millie Bobby Brown, who most people might recognize as Eleven from Stranger Things, plays Madison, Emma's daughter, and Kyle Chandler plays Emma's ex-husband, Mark. Charles Dance plays Alan Jonah, the main human villain of the film, and the leader of these eco-terrorists. Ken Watanabe reprises his role as Dr. Serizawa from the first film, and he of course is very loosely based on a character from the original Godzilla. Sally Hawkins reprises her role as Dr. Graham from the first movie, and Bradley Whitford plays a character named Dr. Rick Stanton. I'm skipping over a lot of the other actors and human characters only because it's a lot to name off, honestly, but you also have a cameo appearance from one of my favorite actresses, C.C.H. Pounder, and a character from Kong Skull Island also shows up in this movie, but he's played by a different actor because this has taken place like 40 plus years after the events of Kong Skull Island. So what did you think of the human characters in this film? And keep in mind, audience, we are going to get into some spoilers here, but what do you think of the characters in this movie?
As a whole, I think they're very good. I definitely think 100% step up. I'm kind of glad that it involved a new set of people, as opposed to bringing the
Brodies back from
bringing them back in.
Yeah.
Serizawa, I was very big fan of how much more they gave him and what they had him do.
Oh yeah, because I felt one of my biggest disappointments with Godzilla 2014 is like, okay, you're basing him off the character from the original film. He was nothing like the character from the original film in the 2014 one. Here they actually, something happens where they tried to like actually call back to the original incarnation of the character. And here they actually gave the character some pathos, where I thought he was kind of just there in the first one.
True, but I also think with, more or less, this is a retelling of Godzilla, for a more modern, updated telling, for a new audience. And I think the Serizawa name was just meant to reference. I don't think his character was really to shadow or mirror the original Serizawa in any way, outside of just a throwback, a callback, and make a story play where he's just, the original Serizawa, a couple generations later type of thing. Yeah. That's personally my take on Serizawa. But moving on from him, Vera Farmiga's character, Emma, correct? Mm-hmm. I hated her.
Well, you're kind of supposed to, because
I know.
Because spoiler alert, she ends up being a villain in the movie, or like a secondary antagonist.
Which I'm good with in terms of, you think she's good, but she's really bad, and she's the cause of everything and all that stuff like that. And I'm okay with it. Just in her film, she was very wishy-washy in terms of why she was doing it to begin with.
Yeah.
I felt her character lacked that one component. If they just spent, even if it was just another 5 to 7 minutes on really diving in and fully explaining what made her go the way she did. How did she find who was Charles
Alan Jonas?
Alan.
Yeah.
How did she find Alan? How did they link up? How did they hook up? Why did she do what she originally did? Because she did more or less her piece of justification when she had the confrontation with her ex. But that really wasn't even enough to show or explain to me, oh, okay, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Then towards the end of the film, excuse me, you're trying to make her redeemable, but to me the damage was already done. There was no saving her, there was no redeeming her, but it was because they didn't develop her enough to justify the sudden turn for good.
Yeah, when she dies at the end, I felt like that had to happen, because if they kept that character alive, they would have had to have arrested her. Like, there's no way she's getting away with what she did in the movie. So I think her dying was her redemption. That was her redeeming herself for trying to murder half the human race.
Which I'm good with. But her character development to create that moment of her being redeemed through death didn't sit with me to where I felt bad for her, I felt sorry for her. I was glad she died.
All right.
Like, just her character development, in my opinion, wasn't fully developed to where I was supposed to care that she died.
Okay.
To where, okay, she did. I didn't walk out going, okay, she redeemed herself.
Yeah.
I went out going, you know, okay, she did what she did, type of thing. However, I will give Emma one piece of credit. She could be justified as a hero in my mind, in terms of one aspect only. She's the reason the kaijus got released. She's the reason why we saw kaijus beat each other up. And I liked watching the kaijus beat each other up.
Alright, but
so in regards to that, she's the reason why Godzilla fought everybody, and I like that.
Yeah, but in context of the story, that doesn't make her a hero.
Outside in terms of context of the story, no, she's a terrible person and a cheap way to be supposedly redeemed.
Yeah.
But I think just a little bit more tweaking on her really could have sold her well.
Now, what do you think of Charles Dance's character? Because I found him to be a very two-dimensional bad guy. And to be fair, you've had two-dimensional bad guys in the other Godzilla films, so I'm not really bitching about it. But maybe he could have used more development as well, I would say.
I like him as an actor. I've been watching him Game of Thrones since his debut. So for those who know him on Game of Thrones as Tywin, then you know exactly what he's capable of. I think for this film, yes, he did play second fiddle. You were led to believe that he was the main bad guy, but it was really Emma the whole time driving the force, and he was more or less the support, or at least the backbone to what Emma wanted to be done. But I'm okay with what they did with him, strictly because of the after credits scene. I think what they did with him after the credits and what that little scene showed kind of shows, to me at least, that it's not the last we're seeing him, and he's going to have a bigger presence in what's going to come next. So I think, much like Breaking Bad, how it took at least the first 3.5 seasons to get started to really take off, I think his character is following that same path. He was a slow burn to where the film that comes next, he's going to really take off and get that development. They just needed him in now to get at least a foundation.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think of Millie Bobby Brown's character in the movie? Well, I know you hate child actors to begin with.
If anyone knows me, I'm not a fan of children in movies. I don't like, more or less, the overall stupidity that kids tend to have in movies, to where a lot of things can be avoided if they didn't do stupid things that they did. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I've always had that. However, her character, I think, was well done. I don't want to say she was the best character. I want to say she's kind of like Emma and everybody else. They're good. She got her point done. She did what she needed to do to drive the story. Could have been tweaked a little more. However, I did like that she was the supposed connection between her mother and her father coming together.
Yeah.
Like I said, the script-wise could have really made it a little more crisper, cleaner, sharper, and that's really going to be my main theme throughout this whole thing, just the script being crisp. But her herself playing what she was given, good, I'm cool with it, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
One scene involving her I just found idiotic, but it really wasn't due to her as an actor or her character in the film, just the logistics of the scene, just what her character did, realistically, in my opinion, that I don't think would work in real life.
Alright. What do you think of the character of Mark Russell, Kyle Chandler's character?
I was okay with him. I think he was, I want to say almost, at least in the beginning, he was the most underdeveloped.
Okay.
In my opinion. For him, yes, they showed the background of the loss of their child from the first attack and it caused them to split and go all that out. I think for him, they kind of made him a little too extreme of a recluse and just leave me alone, deal with my own thoughts and issues and things like that. I'll put it to you this way, I liked him more than I liked Emma.
Okay.
He, at least for me, had that proper turnaround of, alright, this guy's acting like a dick, to where, okay, this guy's cool, I can stand behind him, and he's, doing what he needs to do when he's coming around type of thing. I think his character had the best arc of where they started and where they ended.
Yeah.
But as a whole, in my opinion, just the overall best character in the film was Ken Watanabe, and him being Dr. Zirasawa.
Yeah.
I just think as a whole, he was the character of the show. He was the Cranston for this film, much like what Bryan Cranston was for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't pull the stunt of cutting him early.
Yeah.
They kept him for as long as he needed to be in the film.
And even his final scene's actually pretty heartbreaking.
I loved it. Saying goodbye, old friend in Japanese. The callback, not the callback, but a great similarity. He sacrificed himself to save Godzilla, much like Zirasawa in the original film sacrificed himself to kill Godzilla, and more or less both scenes almost kind of led into the same path, same way, type of thing. So really that scene for me as a whole stood out in the whole film, outside of a lot of just the kaiju moments where you saw Godzilla for the first time, Ghidorah spread out with the lightning shoot out of the wings. Like, for scene-wise, that had to be my favorite.
Alright. What do you think of Bradley Whitford's character?
He was okay. He was what he was. He had to be what he had to be, that comic relief guy of the group.
Yeah. I do want to point out he is supposed to be loosely based on the character of Rick from Rick and Morty.
Which heavily surprised me when I heard about that. And, I mean, did I get a Rick from a Rick and Morty sense out of him? No, absolutely not. He was the basic comedy guy.
That I kind of felt about him was what I kind of felt about him was there were points where I thought he was very funny, and then there were points where I'm like, they're trying too hard. Like, the writers are trying too hard to get the audience to really love this character or something.
Yeah, he was a hit or miss. Some jokes fell flat for me. I think the only one I enjoyed really was when he meant stop when they were in the submarine going close to where Godzilla was, and he stopped. He said, I plan on having children in a couple of years. I don't want the radiation to, make me sterile. I found that joke at least the funniest of everything that he did say at that point. But yeah, that was really his one spike.
Alright. Now what do you think of... Now in the movie they do sort of a modern take on the Mothra twins a little bit. Obviously they're not little fairies like they are in the original continuity, and there's nothing supernatural about them, but you have a character in this movie and you see her twin sister at one point, so they're kind of doing a modernization of the whole Mothra twins concept. I could have sworn in the film they showed two of them in the photos. Were they actual twin sisters and it was one or the other?
Yes,
there They're twin sisters, and it showed like their mothers or their aunts or something.
That's
from
what it was.
Other generations.
Okay.
And there is a really nice callback to the original Mothra movie in this, where there's a photo that says Infant Island, and Infant Island was the island that Mothra was from in like the original Mothra movie and stuff.
I liked it because I interpreted that scene or that callback as this version's. They're not the twins, obviously, but they were the original researchers to discover Mothra, so that's their connection to Mothra. So I was a fan of that version, and that's at least how I'm going to view it. I'm going to take it as they were the original discoverers or researchers for Mothra. Yeah. To where, you know, obviously Monarch got involved and did what they did with it.
Now, the movie is littered with like little references to the earlier Godzilla films, which I, of course, fanboyed out on. Like, it really did feel like a love letter to Godzilla in a lot of ways. Some of the references I do think were a little shoehorned in, but it wasn't enough to kill the movie for me. There's a reference to the oxygen destroyer, which I feel like they didn't really do too much with in this movie. You remember the oxygen destroyer from the original film, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Here that just kind of like, I felt like it was just there, you know, for the fanboys and fangirls and shit. But then, like, there is a reference at the end to Godzilla vs. Destroya. You haven't seen that one, right?
Not in full. I have not, no.
Alright. There's also, there's references, when you first see Rodan in the movie, he comes out of a volcano, and that was kind of a reference to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where when you first see Rodan in that movie, he comes out of a volcano. And I also liked how he's being held in something called Outpost 56. Now, Rodan originated in his own movie before he joined the Godzilla series, and the original Rodan movie came out in 1956, so I think that was a
That's
little...
cool.
Yeah. Also in this movie, there's a really nice callback to Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, where they refer to King Ghidorah as Monster Zero, like that's sort of the creature's code name in the movie. They also use a lot of Akira Ifukube's score from the original Godzilla in this.
That I loved, the fact that they used the original music and remixed it with some other stuff. I was a very big fan of the soundtrack in this film. I really was. I gotta give Bear McCreary major props for using the music of the original the way that he did in this.
Yeah, and they also use some of the music, some of Mothra's music and stuff as well. There's also a really nice callback after the credits to Hiro Nakajima, who is the original suit actor for Godzilla. And
that was cool.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that little piece of stuff.
There's a lot of references that I'm probably missing right now, and I saw
the credits alone.
Yeah.
If you took the time to pause them and go frame by frame by frame, it would just be constant, non-stop references and teasers and Easter eggs and callbacks and throwbacks and all that type of stuff. So it's just watching that film 20 times to really catch them all.
Yeah.
It's that much.
I know, and it was great. Like, you could tell the filmmakers, they definitely have seen the other films, and it seemed like they tried to throw as much as they can into this movie without it not making sense, you know, like, yeah. But again, I do think some of the references were a little shoehorned in, but again, it didn't kill the movie for me. I still really loved it.
Yeah, I don't think any of the callbacks brought the movie down. I don't think there really was anything, in my opinion, that brought it down outside of your occasional beat where the script was flat. I don't think fanboying it up or the mock kaiju fights or anything like that really, to where I could say, ugh, okay, that 10 minutes was really rough, or this act was really, really dragging type of thing. I really just think it was a very solid, consistent. The time, for me, flew by. It didn't feel too long. It didn't feel too short. It just felt right. It just really felt, especially in terms of cinematography, I don't know how they were able to do the cinematography to make this, to really fit them in the screen in the way that they did to show how huge they are. But they really captured the proper scale of these kaijus, and that is what kept blowing my mind every time I would see these creatures on the screen.
Yeah. What do you think of sort of the new take on Ghidorah where he could regenerate?
I liked it. Largely because it was a twofold thing. I'm gonna say twofold in reason. One, they gave us his origin in the film. He's from space. He's not of this planet. He's an outside entity. That alone opened up the door for them to do what they wanted with Ghidorah. If they wanted to keep it true, keep it different, have him be extra powerful, whatever they wanted to do with him, they now had the ability to do whatever they wanted without really any complaints. And I think the regeneration tactic was actually, in my opinion, good. I was a fan of it because that did two things. It brought the villain back to life, where you think he's done and gone, but somehow he came back, type of thing. And it also revitalized the film for the second half in terms of it's not over. So I think Ghidorah having that ability actually helped the film a lot, because if he didn't have it and they ended it where they ended it with Ghidorah, then you would have had nothing for the second half of the film. So I think for the purposes of Ghidorah being the big baddie throughout, giving him the regeneration ability was justified in my opinion. And they played it up, they played it safe with creating the foundation of he came from space. That automatically opened the door for whatever they wanted to do with him. And that's what they chose to do with him. Now I know you more or less like being pure in regards to retells and remakes and stuff like that. So where do you stand with the regeneration tactic?
I thought it was a really cool new take on the character. I really did, because the other Toho films, because as the Toho films went on, they kind of like started going off into different continuities. So in the Toho films, they reinvented King Ghidorah's origin a lot in the other films, where in the original series he was an alien. In like the 90s and 80s series, they explained that time travel had something to do with his origin, and then like in the Millennium series, in one of them, you find out he's literally a god, like he's something supernatural. And they do a really different take on King Ghidorah in the anime trilogy as well. So they've always, like, sort of done weird different takes on Ghidorah. So them doing something new with Ghidorah here doesn't bother me at all, because they were still very true to the character.
Now, out of all the takes that have been given to Ghidorah, which takes or directions that he's been given many, many different ones, which one would you say that you like the most? Like, which one would you say is the definitive Ghidorah?
Ooh, that's for me, I would say him in the Showa era, him in the original series, like that's my preferred Ghidorah. I think a lot of people might say like him in the 90s series, but he's just such a cool character that all the different takes on the character I really, really like. So, do you think it would be safe to say that Ghidorah is to Godzilla what the Joker is to Batman? He's the main enemy of Godzilla?
Absolutely. You would have no other choice, because you got Mothra, who really isn't bad. Mothra's the overseer.
Well, Mothra's usually a good guy.
Yeah.
Or Mothra's usually good in most of the movies, and usually in the movies involving Godzilla and Mothra, Godzilla's the bad guy and Mothra's the good guy.
Mm-hmm. And Rodan, for me, can come and go. He can play whatever role you need him to be. And as cool as Rodan is, he is an original. He is one of the big four. He's not as powerful as Ghidorah is in terms of abilities, or even in terms of presence or an aura. So I absolutely would agree. Ghidorah is Godzilla's Joker. Absolutely. It is the two of them until the day they die. It is that story over and over again. It is the feud that will never end.
In the movie, there's a point where it seems like Godzilla dies, or is at least, like, down for the count for a good number of years. It will take years for him to regenerate, and they decide to wake Godzilla up using nukes. And, like, it's supposed to be this real triumphant and heroic scene where they're waking Godzilla up with nukes, but it kind of misses the point of the original Godzilla, where the original Godzilla was actually made to make a political statement against the usage of nuclear weapons, whereas here it's almost like they're saying, "Go nukes!"
And I will be honest with you, I disagree on that entirely. I think with this film being more modern, it's climate change, not radiation, not nukes. And I also think that this time around, you had to break the rules.
Yeah.
You had to revitalize him with the one thing that ultimately created him. So I also think it was that play on radiation created him in the original film. Radiation's going to revive him in this film. So I don't think it's a telling of, we love nukes, everyone bomb everybody. But I think it's more of they used more or less his version of the can of spinach that he needed to gain the strength to go back for the final fight.
Oh, believe me, I'm not, like, upset about it. I don't think that was the message they were trying to give with it. I was just making a little joke, but it just makes me wonder if the director of the original Godzilla, Ishiro Honda, who felt very strongly about those issues, were still alive. It makes me wonder what he would think of that.
I would hope, obviously I could never ever speak for him, but I would hope that, times have changed, times have moved on. Yes, that moment of the atomic bomb, huge, catastrophic moment for the people of Japan. But I think for 29, as the generations have passed, years have moved on, there are new things that come up in the world. So I think he genuinely would be understanding in terms of why they went the way they did.
Yeah. Well, which of the fights in the movie between the monsters did you like the best?
Honestly, I think there's really only one answer to that for anybody. It's the final fight where it's all four comes together for the big showdown. I really was surprised by it because I didn't expect Rodan to turn bad and be on Ghidorah's side. I genuinely expected Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, all three come together to take out Ghidorah. One attacks each head to bring it down, kill, done, over. For Rodan to join Ghidorah and have it be a tag team match, I didn't see coming. It really shocked me. It genuinely did. And I got more into it because now I got lost. Now I didn't know what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. So the final fight really sold me and got me.
Yeah. To be honest, I can't really think which fight I really liked best. I liked all the fights, honestly. It was just so awesome to see, like, a big-budgeted Hollywood version of, like, the kaiju battles that I grew up on in, like, a lot of the 60s and 70s Godzilla films and stuff. Like, it was almost like that transferred to modern day with sort of a new, like, Hollywood sensibility to it.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. The entire film just impressed me with the cinematography of really capturing the proper scaling of how big these kaiju are. That's just the one thing I just couldn't wrap my head around. Because I don't know how they did it. But I completely agree. Every interaction between them and every fight was cool. It was great. We got more of it, which is exactly really all we want. But just the final one stood out because really, that was the one. That was all four finally showing up in the same room, going at it, big giant brawl. You can't get anything. You can't get better than four giant creatures fighting each other. Mm-hmm. You just can't.
Yeah. No, it was great. And what did you think of? I thought this was a little cheesy, but as I said before, I did like how the film's almost like a mix between the serious Godzilla and the goofy Godzilla, but I thought it was really cheesy at the end, where after King Ghidorah is defeated, you see all the other monsters bowing down to Godzilla.
Two things. One, complete play on King of the Monsters, the title of the film. And I think it was cool that the kaijus told you he's the king instead of the humans saying he's the king. I think it makes it a little more definitive, a little more established, at least in that world, that there's only one.
Yeah.
Second, it was a very animalistic thing. Kind of like a pack of wolves, there's an alpha and the rest. Someone takes out the alpha, you now follow the alpha. So that was a very animalistic way too. You got Ghidorah, who's being this alpha. You got Godzilla being this alpha. There can only be one, and they follow whoever is the one left standing. So it was a very animalistic thing. At the end of the day, they're all supersized animals.
But true.
So it was, for me, it was very fitting.
But true, but animals don't bow down like they're humans bound down to a human king.
True, but they needed a way to just show how Godzilla is the king.
Yeah.
And really, that was the only way to do it. Could have there been another way? Yeah, maybe the humans could have said, wow, he really is the king, and then end it. But I think I think it's fitting. I really, really do. I think it was a better way to establish the King of the Monsters title than having the humans do it on their own. Because really, having the end credits be Godzilla standing on top of everybody, you couldn't have gotten anything better than that.
And speaking of the end credits, what do you think of the cover of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla playing over the credits?
I'm a huge fan of Bear McCreary in terms of soundtracks that he brings to the table. I am a System of a Down fan, so I definitely do love Surge. I think the song got good the second verse in to the end. The first part of the song was very rough, in my opinion. I think Surge was singing it like a System of a Down song, or trying to make it System of a Down. And I think just as the song was going on and on and on, you could kind of get a sense, or a feel, in my opinion, that you couldn't do that. So then he went out of that and just sang it normally, non-system style that we know Surge to sing like. So the first part was rough. The first chorus, the intro, the first chorus, first verse, the chorus, rough. Once the second verse kicked in, it went to the way that it should have been, and it was cool. And I'll be honest, hearing it in an IMAX theater with those speakers made it even extra cooler and awesome. Because I originally heard the song through YouTube on my car. And, it was cool, it was okay. And like I said, it picked up in the second half of the song. Hearing it in IMAX speakers, it helped cover some of my dissatisfaction with it.
Okay.
But I was cool with it, I'm good with it. This whole film is about revitalizing, modernizing, and representing it. So I'm good with them doing a cover as opposed to bringing in the original, aka Hulk.
Alright.
With pretty much the final four, being the main ones here. In your opinion, which one of the four stood out to you the most? Which kaiju did you like the most or stood out to you the most? Or were you just a fan of the most of this film?
I gotta go Ghidorah. Personally, he's the one who I thought looked the coolest, but I mean, they all looked cool. I really liked the sort of new redesigns of a lot of the characters, but because Ghidorah is just one of my favorite movie monsters of all time, that was seeing him in this movie, I thought was the coolest out of all of them. But I did really like Rodan's redesign in this movie. You can kind of understand how apparently in old legends, people thought he was like a demon because he almost looks demotic in this movie. Mothra looked great in the movie. It was a really cool redesign for the character.
For me, Mothra was my most worrisome going in, and also my most favorite of them all. Mothra was absolutely beautiful, stunning, breathtaking. I feel Mothra was captured perfectly in this film in terms of who she is, what she is, why she is, and how she is. And for me, like I said, she was the most worrisome because when they announced that the three were coming, I didn't have concerns about Ghidorah, even though three heads may have been interesting. Curious to see how they're going to portray it. Rodan, I had no concerns. Mothra, I was petrified. Because even in the original Godzilla films, Mothra kind of does seem out of place, really, in terms of her aspects with the twins and all that stuff. She's really out of place. So I don't know. I didn't know how they were going to do it in here. But for me, my expectations were met and blown away by all three, with Mothra being the biggest shocker of them all for me. They were all just well done.
I also really, really liked how in the fight scene between Mothra and Rodan, Mothra freaking owns Rodan.
Yes, no, I was a huge fan of that. I got worried with Mothra, because it looked like they were presenting Mothra as not a fighter, just more like, I'll buy Godzilla some time to revive, more or less sacrificing itself. But that shot at the end of him just stabbing Rodan right through the heart, that was awesome. I didn't see it coming. Jelly was cool. I thought Godzilla was going to come in and save, not that part. So I was really, really excited with that.
So what do you think of the other kaijus that show up, like the giant mammoth creature, or like the giant spider, or you saw another Muto in this one?
Very shocking and interesting. If you're creating them all in terms of that, there's got to be a reason. Yeah. I'm assuming / hoping that they have a play or a part in the third King Kong Godzilla, because why else would you create them?
Oh yeah, because that was my biggest disappointment, that you didn't see Godzilla at least fighting some of these other kaijus.
But you see, I'm okay with it, because you could only have so much time.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to add that, if you want to add Godzilla fighting Mothra, Godzilla fighting Rodan, Ghidorah fighting Rodan, Ghidorah fighting Mothra, a 2-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1. Like, if you wanted to keep doing all these showdowns, we'd still be in the theater to this day. You know what I'm saying? We would still be there. It'd be an 8-hour film with a 30-minute intermission. There's only so much you could have done.
It's funny that you say that, because apparently the original cut of this movie was 3 hours long, but the director cut an hour out of it, and he felt like it didn't really ruin the film by cutting an hour out of it, from what I've read. But apparently it was longer, so maybe there were fights with those other monsters somewhere in there?
It's possible. It depends on what was cut from the hour for me to say if it was justified or if it would enhance or bring down the movie. Because I'll be honest, long movies, you gotta have a powerful story to make it go. Any bit of a drag for anything pushing 3 hours, and it's going to be a rough viewing. So it's just a matter of what in those 60 minutes were cut to really justify that.
All right.
But in terms of what was presented to us, final version put out, I was cool with it. I didn't have any issues. I think the monster scenes were exactly what they were supposed to be. Showing each one, having a quick moment of each one so they got their highlights, with a big clash at the end with the final four. It went the way that I expected to, in terms of how each one would be shown and why they were shown and how they were shown.
I do want to point out that the one giant spider monster that you saw in it with like the Cthulhu-looking face, I think that might have been a reference to director Gareth Edwards, who directed the first movie of this series. He did a movie called Monsters before that, and the monsters in that looked a little bit like the spider creature that you see in this movie, so I don't know if maybe that was meant as an intentional callback to Gareth Edwards.
It's possible, and I could see it. I mean, he had a lot of weight on his shoulders to really make that first film successful. Or he was to doom Godzilla for America, and it was done over. So I could see that as a throwback, because I know he was originally involved in this for director, was taken out of it for whatever reason, I don't know, I forget or don't recall the reason why, and this new one came in. So I could definitely see it as a little like throwback or thank you or play on him. However, my standout was a woolly mammoth. I found him really cool. Yeah. I really found the mammoth cool in terms of his presentation and his look, and I hope we see more of him out of the ones that we kind of did see.
Alright, and what do you think of the little callbacks to Kong in this, which are obviously setting up the next movie, Godzilla vs. Kong?
I was okay. I was good with it. I did expect way more of a calm presence, because it was originally advised going into this film that this was the film to set up and explain the story for the next one. I feel this movie didn't explain the story for the next one at all. But I thought the after credit scene would have possibly at least had King Kong there somehow, or even a roar from a King Kong. But to not have him in there shocked me the most.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think of the after credit sequence? Where, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but the after credit sequence involves King Ghidorah's one remaining head, implying that Ghidorah might come back for the next movie. But what do you think of that?
Intrigues me. It showed that Jonah is going to be the villain for the next one, and it makes me think, my personal theory as a whole, we're getting a mecha something. And if it's not a mecha, they're cloning kaiju. Because there's been a lot of science throughout both the films, in terms of now we're studying, monitoring, following Godzilla in terms of habitats. Jonah studying, following, and waking them up. There's so much scientific research and information being done with all this stuff now, that for them to not try to create one so they can have their own version of one would be insane to me. I genuinely believe that was a scene of they're taking the remnants and creating a mecha version, or they're going to clone a version and have it be a little bit different in terms of power or ability. So that's kind of where I went. What did you take from it or think of it?
I definitely got more or less that they're gonna, like, somehow he's gonna come back in the next one. Either it's gonna be him, or somehow King Ghidorah is gonna form into a new kaiju altogether that's just formed from the remains of King Ghidorah.
Alright, so now let me ask you this. Would you want a mecha something?
The fanboy in me says yes, but I'm not sure if it will fit in this universe that they're establishing or not, so I'm 50-50 on it. It depends on how they do it, really.
For me, I think mecha is just, it makes the most amount of sense. I really, really do think so. Because now with all of them, my theory would be the government would want, or even Jonah would want someone to watch over them. And basically you create your own mecha version of a kaiju, and when one kaiju gets out of hand or goes rogue, you send the mecha out to kill it and destroy it. So I think the mechas have a great storyline reason to come into this world. I almost think it's a given.
All right.
In terms of everything that has been done so far, to where the justifications for a mecha aren't far-fetched or not out of nowhere. Because everything's kind of leading to it, in my opinion. Now, you mentioned it before. What's our total number of films at this point?
35. This is the 35th Godzilla movie.
So, would you put this currently right now in the top 10?
I would need some time. I still think this is definitely going to go down as one of my favorites, but I don't know if the top...
So as of right now, it's not 10?
Not yet.
Would you put it in the top 15?
Maybe.
Would you put it in the top 20?
I would have to think about that, because I do have a top 10 favorite Godzilla films list, so right now it's not in that list yet.
Is it the bottom of the list?
It would be like number 10 or number 9 if I were to put this movie on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of all 35 films, currently you would put it somewhere between 9 and 10, depending.
Depending. Once again, I would still need some time to ruminate on this, you know?
Okay, understandable. And then the final one that we could both go into, is this a film people should see? Or is this a film that you can skip and you're not missing much?
You know, I loved it as a Godzilla fan, but I know this is getting a lot of really bad reviews, so it's kind of hard to say, like, if I can only recommend this for Godzilla fans, or if I can recommend it even for people who aren't Godzilla fans. And I'm gonna say, like, it seems like really it's the hardcore Godzilla fans who are getting into this one. And as a Godzilla fan, I really loved this. I thought it really felt like a love letter to the whole franchise. Not without its flaws, but I wasn't expecting the movie to be perfect going into it, so, you know, I accepted this movie, even with its flaws.
Okay.
But if somebody's not a Godzilla fan, it's like, yeah, I'm not sure if I can really recommend this for them, you know?
Okay, I completely understand. And for me, the reviews aren't shocking. Godzilla as a whole never went well in terms of critic review. And critics never liked Godzilla ever to begin with. I can't recall a Godzilla that was deemed worthy of being good to the critics' eyes.
I think critics, once they actually saw the original 54 film, I think critics really warmed up to that, but that's because the original 54 film had deep political messages to it and had a lot of really good human drama in it. Like, the original 1954 film, I could recommend even to people who aren't monster fans, because I think that movie really transcends the giant monster genre. But in terms of the franchise overall, you have to be really into it, you know.
Absolutely. Which is why a lot of the positive reviews out there, they're fan-based. It's the fans giving the high percentage on the Rotten Tomatoes and all of them. So for me, it's definitely a C. You gotta see it somehow. If you're still able to see it in theaters, I absolutely would do so. Because for me, a film of this nature deserves as big as a screen as you can physically get, with the best sound you can physically find. But if you can't, then absolutely, I would definitely check it out on Netflix, DVD, Hulu, wherever the hell it ends up going at this point. In terms of recommendations, it's hard. I try very hard to push Godzilla onto people, and just, you don't really get, at least for me, I have difficulties finding people excited or looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can kind of say this was a film for Godzilla fans. If you are a Godzilla fan of any kind, whether simple or diehard, you have to go out of your way to see it. Because even if the human aspect still isn't what you want, you still got the big four in a cinematic world that is pretty much your version of Marvel. And for Godzilla, I think as a whole, if you find someone who's a Godzilla fan, there really is that passion behind it. There is no casual, I don't want to say casual, but
well, you're kind of a casual fan, though.
Yes, in terms of watching the movies, but I generally do love Godzilla to where I'm here talking to you about it, and I am willing to do things like this and talk to other people about Godzilla and push and present Godzilla onto others. Like, I want other people to witness it, experience it, and things like that.
Stop lying. We both know that you're only here because I threatened your life.
Well, that's besides the point. Something we can talk off camera about.
Well, let me ask you this. If we ever found the time, could get the time off work for this, would you sit down with me and watch all 35 films in a row?
There better be a lot of breaks in between.
Alright.
If it has to be in a row, there better be many, many breaks in between.
Alright.
And then, yes, I will.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, rather... Is it safe to say we kind of rambled for a little bit and...
More or less, it's a rambling review.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this probably long as fuck review of Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We're sorry if we spoiled anything, but if you
should have knew that coming in.
Yeah. So, see you later. Did you just give him the finger?
I did this.
Oh, alright.